But in your opinion, who did you really feel like fumbled on draft night? Who did you feel like needed to do better?
It's not even that I think they needed to do better necessarily. I just think they needed to do different, and that was the Brooklyn Nets. Again, not that they had bad picks or bad pick selection, like as far as the numbers go. You had 8, 19, 26, 27, and then you did that trade for 22 for Drake Powell. But there is just so much overlap with the five guys that you drafted that someone's going to have to take a back seat. And maybe this was a more is more approach from the Brooklyn Nets with Igor Demon and Nolan Traore and Ben Seraph and Danny Wolf, where they all do the same thing. They're primary ball handlers. But I watched the 2014 Suns, and I know that that doesn't work. So if it didn't work then, I can't imagine that it's going to work now.
Yeah, that's very true. There's so many like tall ball handling guards. Why did the Nets feel like they needed to go after that archetype so much? I'm not 100% sure why. Um, Igor was, I think he was a really a really big stretch going after him when they did at 8. That's really crazy to me. Um, but to me, it's like they went after so many guards that are really good playmakers, have a lot of good upside, but I don't feel like they can really defend at all.
No, there's going to be a lot of man or defense played in Brooklyn this year. Absolutely. Because you're adding all five of these guys to the Cam Thomases of that team. The only real good defender that they have outside of like Nicholas Claxton, he's kind of the anomaly there. I'm not sure he's a great defender. He's a great shot blocker. I'm just not sure he's a great like individual defender. The only good defender that you have is Cam Johnson, who there's a lot of smoke is probably going to be on the way out this year. So
Yeah.
I think I think it's pretty safe to say that given everything that we've seen so far, pending some miracle in free agency, that the Nets are going to have the worst defense in the league.
That's very likely. And whenever they're drafting guys like Danny Wolf to bolster their front court, yeah, he's probably the slowest footed big man in this draft. Maybe outside of Hanson Yang, but at the same time, um, yeah, not like pretty much no one that they drafted is going to help their defense. Too many of the same archetype. You had 5 first round picks, and no one you landed. You did not land a single player in the pre-draft top 20. To me, that is a massive fumble for Brooklyn, and yeah, they should be. You should be ashamed of yourself, so to
I
speak.
think that the Nets, all teams really, but I think the Nets in particular, where you have so much draft capital, I made a video about this. I think that you should be drafting based on what you are convinced players absolutely won't be, instead of drafting hoping they will turn into something. Like Igor Demon is a good example. I watched all of the tape. I saw all the combine stuff. He looks good. Am I convinced that he's a 5-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA guy? No, I'm not. So I don't think I would have drafted him that high. I think I could have got him at 19. So if we're taking a look at what was left after 18, you could have drafted Kaman Malawach if you were getting rid of Nicholas Claxton. You could have went and got the Noah Senge, that do-it-all 3. Like, you have to be really valuable with your picks. And if you aren't sold on any prospect, trade back or trade out. Getting more draft capital is never a bad thing.
Yeah, exactly. There was good picks that could have happened. Yeah, either trading back or even if they were to trade up and kind of, maybe assemble that 19th and 26th pick, and instead of getting two lanky kind of opportunity creating guards that can't play defense, yeah, maybe trade up and instead you're going home with maybe a Trey Johnson and a Malawak instead, and then you're able to really have some offense to build around, some defense to build around, instead of these guys that I don't even think we're going to see in the league in 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and again, as respectfully as possible to literally everyone who got drafted. Can't say for you since you actually played college ball, but they're a billion times better than I will ever be. So I have to take all of the he's not good with a grain of salt from my end. But yeah, comparatively, I'm not sure if we're going to see a Ben Serif after his rookie deal. I'm not sure if Danny Wolf is going to be able to make it out because he is so lead-footed, like you said. It's just the Nets had a really good opportunity to not only have all this cap space that they have, but build on the future draft assets that they could have had, and instead they've taken 5 rookies. And last time I checked, no team has ever won anything with that many rookies on the same team. So
No, yeah, it's really hard, and a lot of their veteran presence is guys that I don't really trust. It's like, are you gonna follow like Cam Thomas in that locker room? Like, what's that really looking like? There's really no one that I feel like is steering the ship properly. So yeah, I mean, they were the only team I straight up gave an F to. I was like, this is like, I can't even I can't even really lie to myself and act like there was something positive or a silver lining here. It was just straight up terrible drafting by Brooklyn, who I was very positive about. I mean, when do you see 5 first-round picks ever?
only in 2K videos. Like they were sitting on a treasure trove and turned into a bunch of bronze nickels. Like
Exactly. It's pretty crazy. So yeah, they definitely were a loser, and we were talking about it briefly earlier. It's definitely looking like a head scratcher when we're looking at New Orleans. Like what's Derek Queen and Zion going to look like together? Jeremiah Fears, is he going to be a guy that's going to step in into that CJ McCollum role? I'm not buying what they're putting together. What do you think?
no, there have been some off-court antics that have been going on with the Pelican star player that I don't really want to touch on here, but that is going to play a factor in the rest of this season. So if you do have to move off of him, is Jeremiah Fears and Derek Queen the building blocks that you need them to be? And I'll tell you this, I said earlier in the YouTube disaster that we had 20 minutes ago that Derek Queen and Zion together probably isn't the sauce. But Derek Queen by himself, I'm a little more intrigued by that. Like you said, Jeremiah Fears, coming into this year when he was coming from high school to Oklahoma, he was touted as the next Trae Young, that he can shoot the shit from three, that he's a great facilitator. And while I think parts of that game are true, I think that you have the ability to be a good facilitator. He shot 28% from three. So Trae Young had a bad year last year, but he'll never be 28% bad. So we need to pump the brakes on that. But as far as the core building blocks for this, if Zion's out, I like it a little better.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't think that you can have two undersized bigs who are kind of vertically challenged whenever they're going up for rebounds. And I know that, Derek Queen, he has a lot of size. He can put his weight into a lot of guys, but that's not going to be as effective in the pro game. So I'm right there with you. I think that I don't see a way that both of these guys can develop harmoniously side by side. And yeah, and like I was saying, those Zero Fears jerseys are going to be sick, but he's just too inefficient. He doesn't really know how to get his shot, or doesn't know how to get a smart shot. He's a really good tough shot hitter. But yeah, I don't really see him fitting into that CJ McCollum role, and that's why I'm giving them about a D minus.
Yeah, it's so hard with draft grades just because it's all a guessing game, really. But with all the external circumstances going on, it's kind of hard to give them anything more than that. Had other things shaken out, had they not given up that 2026 pick to get Derek Queen, maybe we're a little more favorable on the whole outcome. But because of all those things, it's hard to give them more than a barely passing grade.
Yeah, it's just tough to see the overall vision out there other than them just kind of throwing darts at a dartboard. But was there any other organizations that kind of left your head scratching on draft night?
The Pistons were a head scratcher for me, and it really wasn't even Did I say the Pistons or the Raptors? I meant to say the Raptors. The Raptors were a head scratcher for me, and it really wasn't because of their draft picks. It was the external circumstances for that. Because that both I think that both Colin Murray Boyles and Elijah Martin are good pieces. They are good ancillary pieces that you need on your team. Why would you let Masai Ujiri do the draft day stuff if you knew weeks ago that he wasn't going to be part of your franchise? Because there was some external stuff too. It didn't seem like Colin Murray Boyles was too pleased about being drafted to Toronto. Maybe I'm looking into that too much. Maybe I'm reading body language wrong. Who knows? But that didn't seem like a Masai Ujiri Toronto Raptors move. That seemed like a next regime move. So I'm confused about the fit there, because you have the Scotty Barnes and the Brandon Ingrams. Like, you're kind of forwarded out there. But I will say that Elijah Martin is really overlooked because he was on that Florida team that won the national championship, was super important to that team. And the year prior, he was on that FAU team that made the Final Four. So that guy is a winner. And when you were trying to build that young core, especially post-championship, you would need glue guys like that. You need cogs in the machine that know how to win. So I think they probably nailed the 39th pick better than they did the 9th pick.
That's honestly a really, really good point. I was kind of scratching my head at Colin Murray Boyles. I like his talent overall, but it just didn't really seem like the Raptors needed that skill set. Seems like they have a lot of guys fighting for those kind of minutes. So I was really wondering why they didn't go after a guy like Malawak and maybe move on from Jakob Pertl and kind of reassure their front court situation. But yeah, so I kind of see where you're at with the Raptors. Definitely didn't love what they were doing, and it doesn't really make sense how they were operating from a front court or from a GM perspective, because you should want to implement your new strategy as early as humanly possible, and it seemed like they didn't do that.
Yeah, we should have known something was up with the GM spot when Kamal Malawach is such a Masai Ujiri pick. If you look at the history of every draft pick that he's ever made, that was a layup. And the fact that we didn't get it, we should have known then. But
yeah. Is there any chance I could add a little bit on the Raptors stuff?
Oh yeah, please do.
I think, so Masai Ujiri is going into the last year of his contract. Why not just let him? It's not like this year is going to be make or break for the Raptors. Like, they've already reached probably the lowest they're going to be as a team the next 5 years. Like, why not just let him go through this next draft and let him go through the rest of the season? And if they still stink, then fire him. Like, I don't understand exactly why they felt the need to fire him now rather than in a year if they still only win like 25 games. And I also agree very much with the way that they've been doing forwards the last few years. I mean, I'm sure you guys remember when Precious Achiuwa was playing point guard for the Raptors. They've just have far too many guys that are like 6'7" to 6'10", and not enough. They're in, like, I feel like it's almost the opposite of like how I always think the Cavs are a weird team because they've got 2 7-footers and 2 6'1" guys, and then a 6'3" small forward. Like, the Raptors just have a million guys that are really tall and talented, but they need a solid point guard and they need a solid center who, like, Jakob Pertl's great, but he's not going to be there. He's not going to be the same guy in 5 years. Like, I don't really understand. I agree that I can't pronounce his name right. The tall Malawak should have absolutely been the pick. Like, I don't know why it wasn't, honestly.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It would have made all the sense in the world from a fit perspective, and yeah, it seems like I don't really understand the full totality of the direction out there in Toronto, especially the timing of the firing as well. So it really leaves a lot to be desired in terms of stability, but I also think that they're a franchise that really doesn't go after a lot. They're very reserved. So I'm not really expecting them to to really do something radical to right this ship sooner rather than later. I think they're just going to try to build small brick by small brick.
And that's why I'm in on keeping Ujiri one more year. Like, that's why I don't understand why this was the time to fire him. And also, you haven't seen Brandon Ingram play a game. Who knows? He could come out with this team and be, because he's a decent passer, that he could be what they need to make the playoffs again. Like, we don't know. They have good pieces. They're not a sorry team.
That's true. But yeah, I am wishing that they did a little bit more on draft night. But at the end of the day, yeah, I think that rounds out some good draft teams that I wish would have done a little bit more. But let's shift gears towards something a little bit more positive. Austin, who are you feeling like was just the real winner of the 2025 draft?
I think it's hard to pick a definitive 1A winner, but I have 3, and all of them happen to be in the Southwest Division. So we have to start with the number 1 of the draft. Cooper Flagg is obviously the clear 1-1 kind of guy. And it's unfortunate that I have to even say this, but there was a lot of smoke, even up to Adam Silver walking up to the podium, where I was like, what if they trade the pick? what if they're like, nope, Cooper Flagg's not it. We want to win right this second. So, but since they kept it, Cooper Flagg is obviously the 1-1. Not to add on to the Spurs of it all, but the Spurs, hell of a draft. You had Dylan Harper, who was the very clear number 2 in this draft. And if Cooper Flagg didn't reclass last year, if he didn't reclass up, Dylan Harper would have been the number 1 pick in this year's draft. Great value, great talent. I think him and Steph Castle and De'Aaron Fox are going to have a little bit of a weird time figuring out the point guard responsibilities between the 3 of them, but I believe in the Spurs organization to figure that out. And Carter Bryant really couldn't have been a better pick for you guys to have a 3 that defends multiple positions to add on to your core. Super good value.
Oh yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head and just spoke all of that beautifully. Yeah, Dylan Harper gives us the 15-year point guard that I feel like we can build our entire offense around. A pick and roll nightmare with him and Wembanyama. So it's really, really looking positive for the Spurs right now. But yeah, also I'm big on Carter Bryant. He was 45% as a freshman at Arizona on catch and shoot threes, and that's exactly what we're going to need him to do is be out there on the wing, free throw line extended. The defense collapse on De'Aaron Fox. They collapse on Wemby. They kick to him. He just needs to hit that open shot. But he's also a really amazing athlete who's 6'6" and can defend 3, sometimes 4 positions depending on the offense. So I really, really like what we did. Yeah, I give both us and the Mavs an A. But there were some other teams that I feel like were sneakily good. I feel like I like what OKC did with Sorber. I really do, because I feel like in a couple years when they're trying to shore up their front court situation, maybe they're not able to pay Hartenstein. They're going to have a guy like Sorber who can step in and help them out in the front court. So I think that was a great move.
Yeah, getting value like that is super underrated. The NBA, a lot of times when it comes to contracts, is really similar to the NFL. When you are able to save money in a contract, let's say that you have the option between paying one top 3 wide receiver in the league, or you get to pay 2 top 15 receivers in the league. I think a lot of times being able to diversify like that is really valuable. Isaiah Hartenstein is making $20-ish million a year. Thomas Sorber is going to make 7. So you're saving $13 million year over year. And they do kind of the same things. I would have to say that Thomas Sorber is a better defensive player than... I think it's a trade-off. I think Thomas Sorber is a better defensive player than Isaiah Hartenstein, but I also think Isaiah Hartenstein is a better facilitator than Thomas Sorber at this point.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think they both bring a lot of good physicality, but they both have their upsides. But I got to respond to this Dave Reed comment for Con Rookie of the Year. Dang, that's a bold situation. That would be really bold. I think I like Khan, but I think his overall upside is incredibly limited. I think if he averaged at over 15 points at any stage in his career, it would really surprise me.
I think he's a good ancillary pick next to LaMelo Ball if they decide to keep rocking with him. We saw at Duke this year, especially when Coop was out for a couple of those games at the end of the ACC tournament and the first 2 games of the NCAA tournament, what he could do as the number one guy. And while that is very promising, it's just not the same. You know, the first 2, especially for that Duke team where they were so highly ranked in the seeding, the first 2 games was like Duke playing against George Mason. Like, it's not the same thing. You're playing accountants and future enterprise managers. In the NBA, you're playing NBA players. So while I think he probably could be a really nice guy to run alongside LaMelo, shoot 40% from 3 for his career, Rookie of the Year is probably a big stretch. I can't lie.
Yeah, there's just too much talent. But I gotta address this Matthew Mejia comment. What if Castle or Harper goes to the bench and wins 6th man? Do you see a universe where either of these 2 really young, talented guards wins 6th man?
It's so tough to win that kind of award because there is so much talent in the league. If they do win 6th man of the year, I don't think that it would be this year. I don't think it would be in the next 3 years. I think you'd have to go through the cycle. I've said on the Baseline Bubs podcast before, to some chagrin sometimes, I'm not sure that De'Aaron Fox is long for San Antonio. I'm not sure that he's part of the core foundation that you guys are trying to build. So I see a scenario where it's both Castle and Dylan Harper in the backcourt sharing the point guard responsibilities, because I think both of them have the mechanics to be a good shooter. It's just a matter of one of them doing it. Preferably both for you guys, but one of them doing it for sure. So I think the more likely scenario is that De'Aaron Fox gets pushed out rather than one of them gets subjugated to the bench forever.
I think I tend to agree. I think that I see a really beautiful scenario where Dylan Harper and Stephon Castle continue to grow and develop, and then we're able, sometime within the next calendar year, move De'Aaron Fox for a really, really good front court player that we can pair alongside of Wemby, whether it's a power forward that we can play at stretches at center when Wemby's not in the game, whether it's somebody we can play right alongside of Wemby. I would be good with either of those things, or maybe even a mixture of both. But I really feel like I see that unfolding over the next calendar year because it will be a logjam when we talk about development. Like you can't develop Steph Castle into the downhill attacker that he needs to be, and simultaneously do that with Harper, while De'Aaron Fox needs to have the ball in his hand enough to really become the leader he needs to be. It's all just colliding at the same time. And for now, this house of cards is going to be good. For now, we're good while these young guys still need to eat and grow. But once they get bigger, I'm a little worried.
Yeah, for right now, it's you're kind of blessed with talent, for lack of a better term, because until Wemby takes that MVP, best player in the league crown, there's no expectation to win. Yeah, you guys want to make the playoffs, you want to get out of the play-in, you want to make some noise in the playoffs, but it's not. I don't think normal people, I don't think that reasonable NBA fans are looking at the Spurs going, that's an NBA championship team because of the one guy. Year 5 or 6 Wemby, then you can start having conversations of why isn't this team performing? Why are they underperforming? And then you start making the moves around the edges. But until that happens, until Wemby is clear-cut the guy and wins multiple MVPs probably, you have this allowance to see what Dylan Harper can do, to see if Steph Castle becomes the offensive-ready player that I want him to be, to see if Dylan Harper becomes the defensive-minded player like Steph Castle is. So you guys are in a really good position as long as the NBA psyche doesn't jump the horse a little bit.
Yeah, I tend to agree. We're blessed with this kind of problem, if you will. It's a good problem to have, as the saying goes. So I definitely think that we are a playoff team, but I also think that we're a likely first round exit with how we're looking. So It's a positive step in the right direction, but definitely nowhere where we can just kind of hang our hat. Sauce Boss, you're saying we're going to be way better than most of the West next year. I agree. I think that we're going to take a couple of really big steps in the right direction. I still just see us running into a Rockets team that may be a little bit better than us. And definitely if we're an 8 seed and we sneak in and play OKC first round, ooh, that would be really rough. So, yeah, there's a lot of scenarios where I like us, but I still don't love the Spurs right now. I really, really need to see us iron out a couple of things, our backup big, and we just need to grow. We still have time. That's just, and that can't be undersold.
Yeah, you guys aren't going to get expensive for 2 more years. Like if you were going to take your lumps in the playoffs, it's these next 2 years.
Exactly. And taking your lumps really can't be avoided. You don't know how to operate in those postseason environments. So you get to the first round, the second round, you feel what that intensity's like, that sense of urgency, and then you're able to advance to a conference finals and you see the step by step. We've seen it with the Pacers, and we just saw it with OKC. The year before, they got absolutely dog walked by Dallas because they didn't have the front court depth. They go out and get Isaiah Hartenstein, and now they're NBA champions. So you got to address your issues and then get back to the postseason, and then trust your guys. And so I think the Spurs are still multiple years away from that, but they have the blueprint. Teams like OKC, teams like the Pacers. You get your superstar guys, you surround them by a bunch of 3-and-D talent, and you roll the dice.
I think what was important for both the Pacers and the Thunder is that roster construction that you were talking about. They had 2 creators. For the Thunder, it was SGA and Jalen Williams. For the Pacers, up until the injury, it was Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam. The other 7 to 8 guys that were playing in the rotation just didn't second guess their role. They catch the ball, they either kick it, they drive it, or they take a shot. Like, they weren't overstepping their bounds, and it's that kind of stuff that really adds up. Because it's one thing to have 6 guys that can do that, but if you have 2 guys that are more interested in doing hezzy tween pull-ups rather than kicking the ball and cutting to create more space for your playmakers, it's not going to work. And the fact that both of those teams had that many guys to be able to do that and buy into a system is ultimately the reason that they ended up in the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, how do you key in on that many talented people that have all bought into the same system? It's just really, really hard to do that. And even if you have a really deep roster where you're basically doing the same thing, aka the Pacers, you can just be outmatched a couple of nights, and then that's what it comes down to. I want to address this question. We got a bunch of Spurs fans in the comments section, of course. With Vassell, his name is in so many trade packages. Do you think Devin Vassell gets traded sooner rather than later?
The short answer is yes. I think that him and both Keldon Johnson, while I think are very good players, don't match the timelines with the Wembys, the Steph Castles, and the Dylan Harpers. That's more of the driving factor than anything. It's not that they're bad players, and it's not that I couldn't imagine them being on a championship Spurs roster. It's the fact that the timelines don't mesh up. It makes more sense for the Spurs front office to hear calls for a Devin Vassell and go, hey, we'll give you expiring contracts and 2 lottery protected first round picks for him. I think you do that trade a lot because I don't see him as a future building block. The same thing with Keldon Johnson. He has his deficiencies just like every other player does. But if someone's going to give you a first round pick for him, I think it would be the Spurs way to take the call and go, yeah, that makes sense. I think when you, again, because of the inexpensiveness of this team for another 2 years, I think it would be more beneficial to have those expiring contracts fall off your books and try to build out under the aprons to do it legally, to then maximize on when Victor Wembanyama has to sign a supermax, and then the year after Steph Castle, and the year after that, Dylan Harper. So if you can get cheap now and lock in contracts that make sense for next offseason, I think you have to do it. I think it would be a disservice to your fans if you didn't.
Yeah, I agree. You really need to be fielding those offers, or otherwise you're not doing your team building, your roster construction a service. But yes, and along, long story short, yeah, I would like to see us trade Devin Vassell. I think he has a very tradable contract. If you pair him with Keldon Johnson and a couple of our other assets, our draft capital, I think you could really go after somebody significant and really move the needle. But whether or not that happens in the next year, in the next 6 months, who knows? But at the same time, I agree. Devin Vassell has had time and time again to improve, and he's still at this point in his career a sub-league 3-point shooter. And when you shoot at the volume he does, that just really doesn't add benefit to your team, because that's one of our biggest problems, has been shooting and has been floor spacing. And we look to him consistently to improve that. And we need him to at least be league average when he's in these catch and shoot situations, and he's not. And so I'm really needing him to be better. It's now going into year 6. This is not a guy that is a 1, 2, 3 year guy that we can excuse. He is an NBA vet and needs to be playing like it. So I'm just kind of viewing Devin Vassell as somebody I'm going to be a little bit more harshly viewing moving forward.
I'm obviously not as tapped in as the bums are for San Antonio Spurs stuff, but from the outside looking in, both Keldon and Devin have flashes of brilliance. You'll turn into a game and see that Devin Vassell has 27 on really good efficiency and go, wow, this is a guy that you can hang your hat on. And same thing with Keldon Johnson. He could show up defensively in a way that I don't think a lot of people expected him this far into his career. And then when you take a broader view of the whole thing, when you break it down through 82 games of a season, you go, oh, well, Devin shot like 37% from the field. That's not good. What happened to the hot streak that I saw 6 or 7 times this year? So, yeah, it's unfortunate that we have to move on from 2 guys like that are part of Spurs culture, for a lack of a better term, that have been here since the jump. But for Banner 6, I think you have to do whatever you can.
Oh, yeah. If that means moving off of Devin Vassell, then you do it. If you have to move off of him and Keldon and just abandon what the Spurs have been the last 5-6 years, you do that instantly. And you do it not only to start winning games, but to make Wemby happy. Because if you're not performing consistently and growing and treating each year as an opportunity to get better than the last one, then you're really not going to exist next to Vic that long, because that's his mindset, And I think it's a wonderful thing out here in San Antonio. I saw somebody mention in the comments section, he was talking about Lonzo Ball. I think this is a great time that we can kind of talk about this trade just very briefly, because I like Lonzo Ball going to Cleveland. I think that he's going to help give them an extra facilitator, give them somebody that can rebound at the guard position, and do a lot of this while Darius Garland is recovering from surgery. And what are your thoughts on it?
I'm going to try to take all the bias that I have out of it, because I really do love Lonzo Ball. Back in the day, I was watching Ball in the Family, watched him at UCLA, was super plugged into him when he was in the Lakers, and then when he showed out for the Pelicans. I love Lonzo Ball. So for the Cavs, I think this is obviously like the clearest win now move ever, especially with the East being wide open, no Celtics, right? I think 1-for-1, the upgrade between Lonzo Ball and Ty Jerome is pretty clear that it goes Lonzo's way. He's a better defender than Ty Jerome when he has rhythm, when he's not constantly in and out of the lineup because of injury. He's a 40% guy from 3, so he's a better shooter. I think he's a better facilitator. A huge win for the Cavs. The obvious big question mark is, can he stay healthy? But I do think because he's behind 2 prolific guards like Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, it kind of gives him more of a luxury to not feel the pressure of having to play all the time, because when he was in Chicago, it was Josh Giddey. That's it. And, respectfully to Kobe White and Ayu Dosunmu and my boy Javon Carter, that there wasn't a whole lot of comp for him. Like, this is one of the first time that Lonzo can be an ancillary piece instead of the engine to an offense, and that has to have a bunch of benefits for him, especially for his health.
Right. I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, I think this is going to be really amazing for his workload, because he's not a guy that you can go out there and play 35 minutes a game and expect really, really elite production night in, night out. I think he's going to maybe play 50-something games, maybe give you 20-something minutes, but I think he will alleviate some of that stress just enough from Darius Garland, from Donovan Mitchell, from a playmaking perspective, to where they can go out there and get buckets if you're playing alongside of Lonzo Ball. If that's, and you don't have to worry about him wanting to force his own offense. He's not going to be out there wanting to put up threes and trying to get a step back off and Euro stepping. He's just going to try to collapse the offense and then get you your shot where you need it. So I think it's great, and it really just signifies that Cleveland wants to go all in while this East is as weak as possible, because this East is unbelievably weak. When you look at Halliburton going down, obviously Jason Tatum going down, it's just an incredibly weak East at the moment. So why not push all your chips in?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. To add on to what you said, we have Damian Lillard with the Achilles injury too. We don't know what the Bucks offense is going to look like. Despite the fact that they got a really good one in VJ Edgecombe, the 76ers are probably going to be pretty bad. There's a real scenario where we're looking over at the East and we see a Cavs Magic Eastern Conference Finals, which would have been really cool in 2009, but in 2025, I don't think any of us expected it.
Right. Well, I mean, it turns out like going and getting Desmond Bane may just be what gets you over the hump and gets you in the Eastern Conference Finals in 2026, because it's that much up in the air. It's that crazy right now. And I think that it's refreshing to see this amount of parity, but it's also a little bit like, all right, can we get a little stability? Because the West just looks like a powerhouse right now.
Yeah, I'm never really a proponent of the West is leagues better than the East. I feel like that conversation is kind of overblown. The way that I view it, there are 3 to 4 contenders per conference each year, like real ones, not, the Sacramento Kings a couple years ago, the Light the Beam Sacramento Kings. No one really thought that they were going to win the championship. They were just fun to watch, right? So I think there's a handful of teams that could legitimately win the championship every single year from each conference. This year, I don't think so, actually. I think it's the Cavs, and that's it. and we still don't know if the Cavs are going to trade Darius Garland or not. The free agency hasn't even started yet, so there's a lot of moving pieces here that there's a real scenario where there's not a clear winner to come out of these. We're just going to hand the championship back to Oklahoma City.
Right, and I think that's the most likely scenario is OKC running it back, especially when they're getting guys to bolster their front court like Sorber. It just really looks like it's a situation where they're going to run away with it, and I don't know. I think they deserve it. They've just done such a good job of building this team that I think if you're going to combat what they've put together, then you're going to really have to play chess for 5 or 6 years in order to make that happen. And very few teams put themselves in positions to do that. But Austin, we've got the draft board right here behind us. Is there anything else that was standing out to you, or anything else that you're wanting to touch on? Because there was a lot that happened, and some stuff we've got to, but there's a lot that we haven't.
I would like to touch on my Celtics bias just for a second. I didn't know that we were going to be able to get Hugo Gonzalez at 28. I figured he would be like a early 20s, post-lottery kind of guy because of the game tape, really. We don't get to see him a lot in the EuroLeague, but the Real B League, for La Liga B League for the basketball side, a lot of really good tape there. I think he has the ability to have a ceiling, an absolute ceiling of like a Franz Wagner right now, that kind of playmaking forward, probably a little streaky as a shooter, but you can reliably put the ball in his hands and he can go get you a bucket, which is super valuable, especially in the post-Achilles Jason Tatum era that we're getting ready to enter. So really like the pick for the Celtics. Outside of that, I think a sneaky addition that may go under the radar because of the trades that they made is Jace Richardson to the Magic. It seems like a good fit. He's an undersized guard, but that Magic team, where they have the abundance of the kind of like the Raptors in a way, where they have the 7 guys that are 6'7" to 6'10" that can do it all. It's not going to hurt you to have an undersized guard as good as Jace Richardson.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah, I know we were talking on a previous episode, and we didn't think Hugo Gonzalez was going to be available at this point in the draft. We were talking about him going higher up, so the fact that y'all were able to snag him at 28, that's really, really significant. But yeah, ultimately, I feel like there's still a lot of things up in the air in Boston, but it's nice to see y'all go snag him. And then I agree 100% about Jace. I want to see his fit in Orlando as well. But another head scratcher for me, and I want to hear your thoughts on this as well, is Rasheer Fleming. I did not expect him to drop that far. I was without a doubt expecting him to be called on the first night. So the fact that he went on the second night, 31st pick, what are your thoughts on that? Because I thought he was definitely a big guy, a good 3-and-D guy, good enough shooter with good length. It's like, why wasn't he going in the first round?
Yeah, I really try to earmark stuff like that when you have a surefire guy who's supposed to be in the 15-17 range post-lottery that falls that much. I feel like there is a reason, whether that he didn't interview well, whether the combine stats weren't great, whether there's some injury thing that hasn't been reported yet. I try to keep my eye on that. But for the Phoenix Suns to end up working so hard to get the 31st pick and then steal him from the Celtics, because that's who we were going to pick at 32, to maneuver that post Kevin Durant trade, I think the Suns, they did what they could. I still a little confused why you would bring in Mark Williams after having Nick Richards and then drafting Kaman Malawach. A little confused about that. But as far as the actual roster building is concerned, where Devin Booker now is going to have to take on more of that traditional point guard responsibility, have the ball in his hands a lot. When he's attacking that mid-range, when he's getting downhill, you're going to have guys that are sitting in the corner wide open. So to bring in Rasheer Fleming and to bring in Kobe Barea, who are both 40% guys from 3, is ultra valuable. And I don't remember, it's some second spectrum stat, I don't remember where I heard it from, some podcast, but Rasheer Fleming shoots like 52% on wide open threes. And those are the looks that he's going to get this year because Devin Booker is that good.
That's very true. And he has the length to get those shots off. So even if it is a light contest, he's going to rise above. And I believe he has like a 7'3", 7'4" wingspan. So he's definitely got the size. And when you're a 40% 3-point shooter and you're able to play defense like he is, man, I was really considering going after him at 14. I was talking about it. I was like, man, we should really consider it. But yeah, that was definitely a head scratcher. Yeah, Matthew, Carter Bryant W. Absolutely. We were talking about him a little bit earlier. But yeah, 45% on catch and shoot threes as a freshman in Arizona. A really, really great defender. He's going to guard 2s and 3s, small ball 4s, and some bigger point guards. I'm just really, really psyched about what he's going to bring to us in San Antonio. So you're absolutely right, my dude. But then we also got another comment that's saying Wizards won the draft and it's not even close. Definitely sounds like a hardcore Wizards fan. But you know what? I do like what they're doing. I mean, straight up, like Trey Johnson, I feel like he was maybe the most talented pure scorer in the draft. And there's also a couple other things. Like I don't really necessarily feel like I love him defensively. I think that he can be targeted quite a bit. So I think that they do have some defensive woes that they need to get but also Will Riley. I was kind of looking at him pre-draft and was, was decently high on him, and I think where they got him makes sense as well. What are you thinking about Washington?
I'm not sure if you can look at it from a 1-to-1 and say the Wizards won the draft, but I will say that I think that they added on to their core as good as anybody else in the league did because of how good Alex Sarr, Bilal Coulibaly, and Bub Carrington are tracking to be. Adding someone like Trey Johnson, adding a glue guy like Will Riley is only going to add beneficial. You can scratch your head all you want about the fact that you also now employ Chris Middleton, Marcus Smart, and CJ McCollum on your team while trying to incorporate all this young talent. But as far as the young building blocks for your core, I see a real scenario where Bub Carrington and Trey Johnson are the backcourt of the future for the Wizards, much like a John Wall and a Bradley Beal were once upon a time. And then you add on top of the fact that Bilal Alcatraz is going to be a top 10 defensive guy in the league for multiple years. And you add on top of the fact that Alex Sarr is probably going to be in the same boat. The Wizards have a very good future.
Oh yeah, I agree. They have boatloads of young talent, and I feel like they just got some pretty smart vets in the room as well. Yeah, and somebody in the comment was saying Middleton and Smart, but also C.J. McCollum just got there as well. So there's some veterans who I feel like can help steer the ship in the right direction, but at the same time, they are many, many steps away from being a really reliable basketball team. So it's nice to talk about the shadow of what could be, but they definitely need to improve.
Well, I think they know that too. I think they know that they're 5-7 years away from actually competing for anything serious. I don't know if you listen to Bomani Jones at all. I like Bomani a lot.
I do.
He says all the time that he's 45, 50 years old, and the Wizards have never won 50 games the entire time that he's been alive. Maybe that changes with this young core, but I don't think that young teams just win because they're young. I think that because of the veteran talent that you're bringing in, like the CJs and Chris's and Marcus Smarts, it's going to add benefit. Yeah, Marcus and all them are not going to be on this team in 2 years. They're either going to fall off the books or they're going to get traded for something else down the line. But experience is invaluable. Marcus Smart's the defensive player of the year. Chris Middleton had multiple 40-point games in the finals. CJ McCollum is one of the best scoring guards we've seen in quite some time. Like, those things are so invaluable to pass on to the next generation. I couldn't imagine a better group of vets to bring in to mold this core.
Absolutely. Yeah, it seems like they found themselves in a pretty fortunate position as far as Wizards are concerned. It's other teams are able to build in other ways, but I like the last few moves they've made, and that's really not something I've ever said about Washington. But I know I always keep steering the conversation back to Spurs, but it's just always the Spurs fans are up in my comment section, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I love my Spurs fans in the chat. How many years till the Spurs make a Western Conference final run? What are you thinking?
Conservatively, because of how good Oklahoma City is, 3. That's year 5 for Wemby at that point. Barring some sort of weird freak thing that I don't even want to talk about and give bad juju out there. To have a year 4 Steph Castle, to have year 5 rather, and that year 4 Dylan Harper, I think that would be the time that you start to see the ascension. I don't think that they'll win the championship in 3 years. I don't think that they'll win the Western Conference Finals in 3 years. But I think after having that much experience and being on the back of Victor Wembanyama, the elite two-way player that he is, I think that's when you start hearing the knocks on the door for a potential championship run.
Yeah, I think that's about the trajectory, and that's about when I feel like all of the stars will align. Matthew, I appreciate the follow, my dude. Much, much love. But yeah, I can't help but think that we're going to need to move mountains to really push this OKC team out of the Western Conference Finals over the next few years. And that's really that's really the mountain that we need to contend with. So if we're going to keep building our team, I think that we can keep doing it the right way. But yeah, I think that I see us in the playoffs this upcoming year. I see us getting to maybe the second round the following year, and then the next year, why not in the Western Conference Finals? That makes sense to me based on how we're progressing as a team, the kind of talent that we're getting, and how I know that we can incorporate that talent. I really think that we're probably 3 years away, maybe a fourth year, and then why not the Spurs winning the 2028-2029 championship?
Somebody's got to win it, and it might as well be you guys.
Yeah.
And as far as the moving mountains, you may not even have to. I think the second apron might do that for you.
Well, I just think that if anybody has draft capital to kind of bolster the units, they can shed salary and then go get some young talent and know that they're gonna make a good decision. And based on their track record, why wouldn't you believe that you're gonna just kind of refill the ranks sooner rather than later? And like I was saying, whenever Hartenstein in a couple years is too expensive to repay, you have Sorber right there waiting in the ranks, ready to throw his big body around. So at the same time, I'm still very worried about OKC, even when finances are discussed.
I mean, we say it all the time. It's so hard for small markets to be able to pay those guys because they don't have the pockets of the LAs or Miamis or New Yorks or whatever. I would love to see, because there's this, I don't want to say dynasty potential, but they won the championship. There's a pretty good chance that they're going to go at least back to the finals next year. I would love to see now, out of the entire existence of the Oklahoma City Thunder, they put their foot down and go, you know what, we're just going to pay the luxury tax. This seems like as good of a chance to bring multiple championships to Oklahoma City. We might as well do it now.
Well, yeah, and the amount that you eat in the luxury tax, you can end up making for it tenfold with the amount of prosperity that a championship brings your downtown metropolitan area in terms of merchandise and marketing. It's just there just tends to be more business out and about when your team wins a championship. And I saw it year in, year out in San Antonio, how it just really affected the sort of small town areas. When you'd see more Spurs gear, you'd see just more life happening. So I think you hit the nail on the head. You got to just go into that second apron, and you got to do it unapologetically if you're going to win multiple championships.
For them being a football state and a football town as well, I think multiple championships really kind of turn heads for, again, what you were talking about, having that small town feel. It's hard to compete. When was the last time Oklahoma, the Sooners, won a championship? Couldn't tell you. Have no idea. They have a champion in their hands right now, so that's going to have to convince somebody to be a fan of basketball, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of reasons to ride the OKC bandwagon right now. But a team that I don't know if they should be excited about, Utah. Is Utah excited to get Ace Bailey, or is Ace Bailey not even wanting to be there? It looked like he was kind of mixed feelings on draft night. What are you thinking about that?
So I saw on socials that he has landed in Utah. Got off the plane. He's wearing the Utah Jazz gear. For photo ops, he seemed happy. On Instagram, he went 0 dark 30. He went and blacked out his profile picture, very much the woe is me portion of it. I don't want to speak too much. I don't want to speak too ill of a 18, 19-year-old, because we were all very young and dumb at that point too. But the prima donnization of the way that he handled this whole process is so unique to me. The last time that something even came close was Steve Francis 26 years ago. So it's not every day that we see something like this, but I know at bare minimum, whether Danny Ainge convinces Ace Bailey that he actually wants to play in Utah and potentially be the guy, Or he said, you know what? We'll just get you out of here and I'll get 4 first-round picks for you because you are that good of a talent. I know that Utah's going to come out on top.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I was just very, very surprised that he even landed in Utah. I thought that was going to be moved sooner rather than later. But also, it almost just seems like it's a problem with what's going on upstairs. It's a mindset issue, and I hate that that's the case with somebody as talented as Ace Bailey. But just him not wanting to work out for teams, him tweeting things like I want to go to a place where I'm a superstar. It's like, dude, if you adopted the mindset where it's like, I just want to go to a place where I can become a better basketball player, you would be so much better off. But to go back to what you said, it's hard for someone 18, 19 years old to have that kind of mindset, to be thinking about longevity in that way. So it's really difficult from that perspective. But man, it really makes you think kind of think the universities and the organizations that really send their kids out to be a little bit more polished when they're entering the NBA draft, because I'm not saying anything bad about Rutgers or anything like that, but it just really seemed like his camp did not prepare him enough. Maybe people at Rutgers didn't prepare him enough to really handle how to address the media and how to just handle himself as a pro.
Well, I think he had an uphill battle, too, because Rutgers was not very good. And for Dylan Harper, I didn't take that for him personally, right? A similar situation was Ben Simmons when he was at LSU. That LSU team was bad. They didn't make the tournament. But we didn't think anything less of Ben Simmons. We thought, yeah, that's still like very clearly the number 1 pick in this draft. So I wanted to give the benefit of the doubt to Ace Bailey as well. You have 2 superstar talents, the second and presumably 3rd overall pick in a draft coming into it before all this prima donna stuff, and then you ruin your stock because of I want to play here, and not do any workouts for them. The uphill battle started when Rutgers didn't play well, because that's a weaker Big East than years past. UConn wasn't good. They weren't going for a 3-peat. Like the gates were wide open for Rutgers to make some noise. So when they underperformed, and then you were a prima donna, and then you didn't do workouts, it's like, why would I draft you at all?
Yeah. It's where's the upside? Because there's a massive project I'm looking at when I look at Ace Bailey, a very, very, inefficient, lanky shooter that I'm hearing a lot of like KD comparisons and stuff like that, but he looks like more like a Brandon Ingram on a good day. And so like it's, I'm honestly just thinking, yeah, they should have gone a different direction, but at the same time, they may end up flipping him. That sounds like something Ainge would do sooner rather than later. But yeah, I think I'm gonna have to hop off on here sooner rather than later myself. But yeah, it's been nice talking some draft with you. I apologize for the live situation earlier. But yeah, we'll get back to talking some basketball as the season picks up and stuff like that. Some off-season episodes for sure. But any final thoughts? Any stuff you wanted to touch on before we head out of here?
I know that this is more of a YouTube sensation, but I would like to get to one dunk, if you'll oblige me.
Let's do it.
So I have recently picked up video gaming again. I've always loved playing video games. It's a way for me to relax. I have started playing this game called Rematch. I don't know if you've seen it, if you've played it. For a lack of a better term, it is Rocket League without the cars. It's soccer, but there's this biome that you're playing in, so you can pass the ball to yourself off the wall and do all kinds of cool stuff. Love the game. My dunk is against the smooth-brained idiots that I have to get paired up with in ranked. Because I'm one of 2 people in my life that love soccer the way that I do, I don't have anybody to play with, so I'm solo queuing a lot. When I'm playing those ranked matches, it is as if it's 5-on-5, so you have a goalie and then 4 players in the field. It is as if I'm playing by myself with the other 3 people in the field as 5-year-olds that are just chasing the ball as if they're in Pee Wee leagues. I've probably, let's do round numbers here. I've played 20 ranked matches. I have won 2 of them because of that exact same scenario. I can only do so much as one player. I'm not fantastic, but I'm good enough to get out of bronze 3 like I'm in. But
Right.
the other 3 players on my team are chasing the ball and leaving 2 people wide the fuck open, so I can't defend everybody. If you don't know how to play soccer, don't play this game in ranked. Stick to quick play where you belong.
Oh, that's perfect. And it's like, yeah, if you're just playing an online situation like that and you're just getting cooked, like, do your team a service and just kind of dip out. Like I see it happen in 2K all the time. It's like, dude, you're not going to be the 3-level scorer on this team. Just set a good screen and then just try to make it to where we're not losing. But yeah, that's a worthy dunk. But I also like to hear you're getting back into video games. It's very, very therapeutic, in my opinion. But I think I got a dunk on dogs off the leash at the dog park, because there's a really awesome park that is nearby my new place, and I love going there. It's really nice, a lot of good stuff going on, great basketball court, all that stuff. But man, they just literally allow your dogs to do anything. Shout out to Down South Sports. Make sure you go follow them. Great content. But I also feel like they need some kind of regulation, because I have big, like 90, 100-pound dogs rolling up on me, and I just can't have that. So yeah, you got dunked on. You got dunked on off the leash. But yeah, it's been a good episode of the Baseline Bums podcast. Austin, I appreciate you for joining me. I know this was different than usual, but yeah, if you're still here and you're listening, go ahead and drop us a follow. And if you're not following Roundball Renaissance already, go ahead and drop him a follow as well. He's putting out great, insightful content on the regular, really, really thoughtful basketball stuff. If you appreciate analysis about the game we all love, drop him a follow as well. But yeah, I'll definitely catch you on the next one, my dude.